Wham! Talk 1600. You're catching the drift. Conservative talk. Intelligent conversations on local, state, and national issues with Gary Wellings, chief editor of the Current newspaper and Current Online. Join in the conversation at 734-822-1600. And now, your host, Gary Wellings.
And thanks for tuning in to catch my drift here at Wham Talk 1600. Good to have you aboard. And got lots to cover, man. If you watched any of these last two conventions here, you've got to have just a belly full of opinions on it. I certainly do, and we'll get to those eventually. Let's take care of a little business here. Our sponsor this half hour will be Walberg Rehabilitation of Pinckney. You can reach them at 517-375-5363, and they specialize in post-acute rehabilitation and nursing care, and they are a great bridge to recovery and wellness. So you can go to their website, thewellbridgegroup.com, or call them at 517-375-5363. They're really good folks, and if you got one of these issues where you need a little rehab, whether you had an accident or whether you are just getting older and need a little help, Walberg is the place to go. So check it out. They got a great new place in Pinckney, and it's beautiful. You can actually see the ad of the new place in Pinckney in the Current July edition of the Current. So give them a check. What we do on the Daily Drift, or the Drift, is go over the news we put on the Daily Drift, and then if you're not going there, make sure you do, www.thedailydrift.com, and check out the news you need to know. So we're going to start out today. We've got a special guest. We haven't talked to him in a while. 7th District U.S. Congressman Tim Walberg. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Gary. Good to be with you.
It's been a while. We haven't had you on in a while, so it's good to hear your voice.
I don't know why that happened, but always enjoy coming on with you. And of course, it's always talking about pertinent issues. So we'll look to try to make sure it doesn't remain so long and far between this next time. So.
Yeah, well, it is an election year, so the open door you have here with me is probably a good idea for you to come in. And you are welcome, Tim. Even if you're not planning on it, you can always call in. So glad to have you aboard. Well, did you go to the convention, Tim? Were you there by chance?
No, I wasn't. I watched it every night like a lot of other people, but having a primary race as well as a general race, it was good for me to be back in the district doing my official work as well as campaign work. So it was a full time, and then last week I took the opportunity to watch the Democrat convention as well, just to see what the other side was saying. And if you like to hear what movie stars and sports figures think about life and tell you to vote for someone who is way out of in left field as far as what this country needs, then I guess you enjoyed last week. I didn't, but I had to hear what they said.
Right. I did my editorial for the August Current basically on that as well, because, at the Republican convention, yes, maybe it was a little dark, maybe it's a little foreboding, but you know what? If you are not looking at what is happening in this country and around the world today, and you think it's not dark and foreboding, there's something wrong with you. I mean, the Democrats exactly right. They painted this rosy picture, and Barack said, "Oh, we got a little work still to do." You got a lot more than a little work to do, Mr. President. It's an outrage what's going on.
Well, absolutely. And I'm not falling into the language of the Democrats of calling the Republican convention dark. It was realistic. We were talking about what's going on, and that's not dark. That's rational. What I heard last week almost, in fact, it did make me say to my wife once, Toto, are we in Kansas yet? I mean, this was an unreal setting next week where they were trying to paint a picture of unreality. Frankly, when the president steps up and says we're respected in the world, no, we aren't. We're respected from the fact that America is looked at as a nation that has been great and needs to be great. I've had foreign leaders say that to me. What's happened to America? We need you to take a stand again. We need you to be who you are. But why are you the way you are now? And so the president doesn't get it when he talks about our economy going strong. Again, we see a economic growth rate yesterday announced of 1.2%. that's so inferior that it just will not cut it for us having global competitiveness. And that's what's continued on for most of this past year, 2% or less growth in our national economy. And so, I hear all this stuff coming from the convention, but it's not reality. 20 million people more having health care. Well, what about the people that have lost their health care? Significant loss. You're not hearing people standing up and shouting about their delight of being on Obamacare. They're saying, the president lied to us. He said if we liked our insurance, we could keep it. We weren't able to keep it. He said if we liked our health care provider, we could keep him or her. We haven't been able to. We're not in the same network. And so I think we need to talk in realistic terms, and that's not dark. That's dealing with truth and then being able to work on that to make something better.
Yeah, and Tim, bear with me. I want you to hear this track because this hits exactly on what you just said. You and I are on the same wavelength. Derek, do you have track 4 ready down there? And this is about the growth or lack of growth, because in all the years that Barack Obama has been president, we've never broken a 3% GDP increase, which is just astounding. So I want you to hear this, because this reiterates the fact that the Republicans are being real and the Democrats not. You got that ready? All right, listen to this, Tim.
Okay, second quarter GDP, 1.2%. Estimates were for 2.5%. You also had a revision to the first quarter. Now growth was just 0.8%. The original read was 1.1%. Also looking through some of the other data that we had, in particular, the core PCE, it's the personal consumption expenditure. It's what the Fed really looks at to track inflation. That actually coming in bang in line with estimates at about 1.7% for the second quarter. But just to reiterate here, guys, that second quarter GDP, 1.2%, well below estimates.
Okay, so Tim, and correct me if I'm wrong, too, because I know you follow this pretty closely. It seems like every time they report for every quarter with the and maybe it's the same with other administrations. I wasn't following it as much under the Bushes and Clinton, but it seems like they'll come out with an estimate and they'll say, like this last time, 1.2, and then they're revising it down the following month when nobody's really paying attention. So is this a concerted lie, or is this just something that happens all the time?
Well, it's happened regularly through these last 8 years, that's for certain. And to be honest, on a few occasions, they had a revision that moved it up a bit, not much. That's why we still look at less than 3% over the course of the past 8 years. And that is not a sustainable growth rate for an economy that will lead the world.
Yeah, because what that means, Tim, is if we're not growing more, at least 3%, that means we're not creating jobs, right?
Right. That's absolutely correct. And if we're not creating jobs, then what's happening? Well, we know in certain cases, I've just driven past the 3 now hiring signs or help wanted signs. So we know that there are jobs there. But sadly, we've also put a situation where we've given a perverse incentive for people not to work. And so we'll see some people who will say, I won't take those jobs, or I can actually do good enough by staying on some type of social assistance program or unemployment until there's a job that I want. When in fact, Gary, you and I know as we were growing up in our life that you took a job, and then if you could get a better job, you moved from that job. But you took a job and you worked. You didn't expect someone else to take care of you, unless, of course, you were not able to take care of yourself. You weren't able-bodied. Then certainly we have no problem with safety nets. But when we give an incentive to wait to find that perfect job, or just accept some type of government assistance program to keep us from having to go to work, that is a real problem.
Yeah, it's just astounding to me. You and I guess we're too old, Tim. Maybe that's what it is, because our young people today they feel that sense of entitlement. And I think that's part of our education system, part of our college system, that are making these young kids feel like they're entitled. And I mean, my own son, I'm always yelling at him, get up and do. You want something? Get out and work for it. I'll do it for you. But it doesn't seem like that is the rule or the cultural idea that's normal anymore. Yeah,
and again, we have put frameworks in place that's really encouraged the natural laziness at times, and there have been times in my life when I could be extremely lazy, and just like you talking to your son, my dad would talk with me and say, I'm not raising a guy that's going to expect somebody else to take care of him, so get off your duff. If you don't like it tough, eventually you will learn to appreciate it. And I think our young people are capable of the same thing. We just have to make sure the incentives are there, and sometimes the incentive is the fact that you're not going to have what you want, you're not going to live well, and you're not going to be satisfied unless you do it on your own. And that's where I think our educational system, that's where our families have to come in, and certainly our government ought to make sure we get out of the way of those things being taught and expected. I think that's the good thing we've seen most recently this past year as we passed the Skills Act in Congress and ultimately got the president to sign it. That does give more incentive and opportunity to train our young people in real-world skills and not simply tell them that you've got to have a 4-year college degree or college education, but in fact you might find your sweet spot by getting a certificate, by getting an associate's degree, by going to an apprenticeship program or a trade school and finding a sweet spot that will start you out at $50,000, $60,000 from day one and give you opportunity with advancements when you take overtime, et cetera, to over $100,000. I met several employee settings last week that's the exact framework that they're working from.
Yeah, so, it's amazing that they always want to push this college education. Let me assure you, you are dead on the money because you know what? Plumbers make great money, whether they're self-employed or doing union work. Same with carpenters, same with roofers. You can make a living in vocational trades. If going to college, and especially if you're just studying something that doesn't make any sense, if you're getting an engineering degree, that's something you'll be able to make money with. That's something that'll contribute. It's these crazy social degrees that don't seem to make any money and leave kids without a job. So it's amazing that people, and I don't know if we can blame our counselors at the high school level or what, but you don't have to have a college education. I think a lot of people are being pushed into college, and it's just part of the academic infrastructure that's just causing prices to go up in the college thing because there's more people going who probably shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have an education, and you have to have continuing education, but there are all sorts of approaches, and when we push kids to four-year institutions, it gives almost an automatic full employment for college professionals and college professors, etc. When in fact some of these young people would find a much better sweet spot filler by going the trade route. I was at a manufacturing plant, a machine manufacturing plant the other day in Saline that's doing some amazing stuff with molding equipment, blow molding, that type of thing. And they're hiring people right out of high school, training them. They'll start out at $50,000 a year. They can move up. Also, if they decide they want to move on and get an engineering degree or a technical degree, the company would actually assist them or provide full payment for that degree and moving forward, and all the while still gaining money from working at the plant. So there are all sorts of opportunities that are there if we're willing to take the time to look, encourage young people to be responsible, to think what would be something I would enjoy doing and building something that makes a difference. I think we have plenty of opportunity in this country, but let's get the government out of the way.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you something, too, Tim. So you're running for election this year. So you're all over your district here, 7th District in Michigan. What are you getting vibe-wise from the people you're talking to on the street? Do you think Michigan could actually go Republican this year? You're feeling confident about your race. I know that. What's your feeling here in the state of Michigan in your district?
Well, in my district, I never let myself feel confident about my race. I was there for one term in 2007 and 8, and I was defeated for re-election in 2008 and sent home for 2 years, and then the people had an opportunity for a do-over and decided to put me back in, and I've been there since. So we try to keep up with the people. I've had 80 live town hall meetings this year, plus 13, 14 teletown halls, and what I'm hearing out there, Gary, are people who are across the board confused, frustrated, worried, angry, bitter, very much concerned about what's going on, about the plight of our country. They don't think that their government has served them well. And on the basis